Halló, velkomin á rásina mína, lærum íslensku, or let's learn Icelandic. Today we're going to tackle our first verb, and of course we're going to start with the verb to be, because that's the only one that makes sense. So the verb to be in Icelandic is að vera, and like in basically every other language that exists on this planet, to be, or að vera, is an irregular verb. However, it is not particularly difficult in Icelandic, at least not in the present tense, so let's just start. When we look at the verb to be in the singular form, in the present tense, then it is as follows. I am, we say ég you are, we say þú ert, and then in the third persona we say hann hún hán og það So basically for everyone except for you, then the verb is simply and then when we're talking about you, then I will use ert. So when in the singular form it's very easy. Since we have a verb now, hallelujah, I'm going to introduce a couple of new words in general so that we can try and start to make some sentences. Okay, so these are the words that I'm going to introduce today, just so we can sort of start playing around with making a sentence. First of all is the word hérna, which means here, þarna, which means there, inni, which means inside, úti, which means outside, and finally heima, which means at home, and you might recognize from the homework or the heimavinna that we've been seeing throughout this course. These words are particularly useful because these are all what we call in Icelandic atviksorð or adverbs in English, and the beauty of atviksorð is that they don't change according to any cases. They're always the same. So we don't have to really know any grammar now. We can still use them in a sentence without having our head explode because of all of the cases. So now I'm going to make up some random examples just so you can see how the verb to be is used in a sentence. I could, for example, say ég heima, which means I am at home. Another option is þú ert hérna. Then we could, for example, have a man that's outside and a non-binary person that's inside, and then we would say hann úti en hán inni. Hann úti en hán inni. Then we could be talking about a carrot and an apple, and we could say hún hérna en það þarna. Or we can substitute with the words and say gulrótin hérna en eplið þarna. Gulrótin hérna en eplið þarna. So all these sentences are quite simple. All you need to remember is that when you say þú, you should say ert. Þú ert hérna, þú ert þarna, etc., etc., etc. I think this went pretty well, so now let's look at the plural. Okay, the plural, when we have more than one person that we're talking about. First of all, in English we would say we are, but in Icelandic we say við erum. Okay? In English, when you say you are or you guys are, then in Icelandic we would say þið eruð. Then when we move on to the third person, then we say þeir eru, þær eru, og þau eru. So the conjugation is this: við erum, þið eruð, and they, or þeir, þær, þau eru. Okay? Now I hope you will remember all the words that I introduced like 2 minutes ago, because we're going to use them again, and now we're going to try to make some sentences with the plural. And I could say, for example, við erum inni en þið eruð úti. Við erum inni en þið eruð úti. Or I could say, þeir eru hérna en þær eru þarna. Þeir eru hérna en þær eru þarna. Or somebody might ask, where are your mom and dad? And then you would answer, þau eru heima. Þau eru heima. All in all, pretty straightforward, and now you can try to mix and match and try to start to make sentences on your own, like you're actually speaking proper Icelandic. So yay! There is of course one little side note to this, and this is when we ask questions. Specifically when we ask you a question, both you in the singular form and you in the plural. And then you would say, similar to in English, you would say, are you here? We would say, ert þú hérna? Ert þú hérna? However, if you say it very quickly and very often, then it starts to become ert þú, ertu, ertu, ertu. So now, officially, when you first say ert and then say þú, we can combine it into one word, which is ertu. Ertu. So instead of saying ert þú hérna, we say ertu hérna. I want to emphasize that both versions are correct. Okay, so if you say ert þú hérna, this is absolutely correct. However, a native speaker would only say this if he or she or they were emphasizing something. So when normally you're talking, especially in a casual talk, you will almost always say ertu hérna, not ert þú hérna. This form of the verb is something that does not only exist for to be, but you will see it again and again with basically all the verbs. Okay, so in normal situations you would say ertu hérna, but if you want to emphasize something or speak extremely clearly for whatever reason, you might say ert þú hérna. We also have this in the plural form, so instead of saying very formally eruð þið hérna, you can already see that this ends with an eð and starts with an th, which is basically the same sound. So eruð þið, it really blends together. So now when we say are you here in the plural, we say eruði hérna. Eruði hérna. Okay? And like before, both options are perfectly grammatically correct. It's absolutely fine to say eruð þið hérna, but also completely fine to say eruði hérna. And in normal speak, the latter version will be used way more often. So when you're asking questions, you will combine the pronoun and the verb, and instead of saying ert þú heima, you will say ertu heima, and instead of saying eruð þið heima, you will say eruði heima. Eruði heima. That is all. Now you know the verb to be in Icelandic, at least in the present tense, and let's just move on to the homework. Here is a summary of what we learned in this lesson. Press pause and read through it at your own pace. The first homework of today is relatively straightforward. Just connect the sentences to the correct form of the verb að vera. Press pause, take all the time that you need, and now I will give you the answers. Here you can see the result. Það úti, þið eruð inni, þeir eru heima, þú ert þarna, and við erum hérna. For the second exercise, we're going to level up because now I'm only giving you blanks, no options. So just go over these sentences and fill in the blanks with the correct form of the verb að vera. Press pause, take your time, and then now I will give you the answer. So in Icelandic we say þau eru heima, ég inni, þið eruð úti, hún þarna, við erum hérna, and þú ert inni. For the last exercise, we're really going to level up because I'm going to ask you to translate these sentences over to Icelandic. For some of you, this might be hard, but try and see how far you can get. Press pause. This is not a speed exercise. Take all the time that you need, and then now I'm going to give you the answer. So here are the translations. Hann úti, ég inni en þú ert úti. Ertu heima or ert þú heima? Eruð þið hérna or eruð þið hérna? And finally, þau eru þarna en þið eruð hérna. I hope that you managed to get at least some of the exercises correctly. In general, if you want exercises that are more easy or more difficult, just leave a comment and I will try to adjust. But that is it for today. I hope you all now know the verb to be in Icelandic. Bless, bless.